Welcome back, War Room fans. Okay, the video series you guys have all been anxiously awaiting for. We are going to start up our discussions on Germany. Now, Germany is basically the heart of this game. I mean, everything is focused on Germany, the Russian front, but also from, as Bryce and I have discussed on a lot of our videos, and you guys are all aware of, Germany in War Room is the Axis power that has to win the game for the Axis. Unlike G40, where it's primarily the Japanese that win, in War Room, the Japanese cannot win this game. It's all about Germany. So we have to get our German tactics down. We have to come up with some war plans, some battle plans here to achieve success and to win the game. So the interesting thing is about just Germany in general and this whole Europe, the Eastern Front, and how it seems to break down is when you guys look at the forums on Board Game Geek, there's a group of guys who basically say the Axis can't lose this game. It's too one-sided. And then you have another group of guys who say the Allies have too big of an advantage over Germany and there's no point in playing it because the Allies always win. Which maybe in the big scheme of things, that means it's a good game. When you have two camps, they're basically saying it's not fair because one side can't win over the other, but both sides are arguing that neither side, it just gets all jumbled up. So one thing though, in our specific games at the Eagle's Nest with Bryce and myself and some of our other friends, after 12 games, the Allies have won 7 games and the Axis have won 5. And inside that margin though, the Axis probably could have won maybe 2 or 3 more games if certain events wouldn't have happened. So that 7-5 margin, I mean, that's right on the seesaw where a couple things went the Axis way. We didn't screw up on some tactics. We didn't make some boneheaded moves. It could easily be 7 Axis win and 5 Allied win. So I'm not in the camp. I'm in the third camp. I'm in the camp that the game is really balanced at the beginning, and ultimately what tips the scale in War Room is your decisions that you make at the very beginning of the game. Going back to that theme, guy, I'm just gonna keep harping on the same theme, that it's all about your initial plans, sticking to them, but have a sound foundation on what your plan is. And also be light on your feet, I'm not saying switch the plan, but you gotta be light on your feet on the periphery. Okay, so like if you're going, well, we're gonna do a heavy Russian push, that doesn't mean over here you stay flat-footed. I mean, you see something developing over here, you still have to have guys back here to be able to respond and be able to calmly approach the situation and not freak out. Sometimes I do think guys freak out a little bit. When they see something and they go, well, I'm at a disadvantage, then they immediately just start doing crazy things that they would not normally do, when most likely this situation didn't require you to do that move. You could have stuck status quo and done a couple small moves and saved your bacon. Now, one of the interesting things about Germany is, we've talked about almost all the other countries. We still haven't talked about Russia. And of course, we haven't talked about China, but we've talked about all the Allied powers. So if you've been watching my videos, you've kind of seen the foundation of how I think the Allies should approach the war. And even though you might go, well, I only play Germany, or maybe you're new to the game and you're going, well, I'm going over to a friend's house and I'm going to play Germany, so I'm going to start watching some of these videos. It would be good, though, to kind of do a little cursory review of some of these Allied strategies, because it helps Germany specifically kind of understand how, like the video series we've done up to this point, where if the United States is doing Rainbow 5 and Britain's kind of helping them out by doing their London Calling thing, you're going to have a huge Western allied force over here. You're going to have to be dealing with a lot of Americans and a lot of British over here. And so, you know, you need to be able to come up with some plans on how to counteract that. Okay? So how I'm going to do this video series is in the same vein of all the other nations we've done so far. I mean, every nation I've done, we've done multiple battle plans for them. With the Americans, we did the 2 traditional battle plans. You know, Operation Orange or War Plan Orange and Rainbow 5. With Britain, we did the London Calling. We did General Hand Grenades Middle Earth. We did a whole thing on Anzac. So with Germany, and then of course Japan had 4 attack plans that I laid out. So with Germany, we're going to do it the same way. So here's how I'm going to do the video series for Germany, guys. And we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about Germany. Now, also, I will say, whenever we talk about Germany, a lot of this stuff also, so it's also partially, we're going to be talking about Italy too. I'll do probably, after we do the German thing, after many videos of Germany, we'll probably finish it up with Italy, just a small Italy video. They probably only need like 1 video because I'm going to be talking a lot about Italy anyway when it comes to Germany. So here's how I'm going to do the German videos. And I don't know how many I got planned. It's probably going to be 7 videos. It might stretch into 8. Okay. Now with each of these videos, I'm going to lay out a different battle plan that you can start the war with and progress with, hopefully get you a foundation going. But as with all, even the Allied powers we laid out and the Japanese we laid out, these plans aren't, you know, standalone battle plans. They can be combined with other battle plans. You know, as you get more familiar with how the game works, or just with these plans of actually playing the game, you'll start seeing where you can have some crossover and how some of these plans kind of do naturally meld in with each other. So what I mean by that is, let's take Germany here. If, you know, at the start of the war, this is the setup for basically the spring of 42, we'll call it, the timeline of War Room. So Barbarossa has failed. The Russian counterattack came in. And this is roughly where, once the winter snow and ice thawed away and Germany reconstituted its forces up here to launch its second offensive, the historical operation was Operation Blue, where they came down here into the Caucasus, okay? And then one of the follow-ups with Operation Blue was the big battle up here in Stalingrad. So this was their focus. This was the historical focus down here. Okay, so we'll go over Operation Blue. Is that a good plan to do the historical offensive down here, get the oil? You know, they got an iron up here, but also, just like in the Global 40, the dreaded Bryansk. And how do we deal with Bryansk? Because Bryansk is the gate to Moscow. Okay, so we'll do Operation Blue. Okay. Then I think the follow-up to that is similar to the UK thing. I'll hearken to Days Gone By of Global 40, and we'll do Young Grasshopper's Cobra Kai, which was his German strategy in Global 40. And that strategy, just like General Hand Grenades, is a viable war room style battle plan, okay? So we're gonna go over Young Grasshopper's ideas on how to to wage the war. And his emphasis in Cobra Kai was a heavy push. Basically, all of Germany comes in here, and then we have the Italians really guarding the back door, okay? So the Italians aren't the offensive force, they're the defensive force guarding the back door as the Germans go try to knock out Russia, okay? So we'll talk about those two plans. We're gonna also talk about another Global 40 thing called Dark Skies, which we're gonna focus primarily on these air units in the dark sky discussion. Because Germany does have a lot of air power. They have a really good mix of air. I mean, they start the game with 12 fighters and 3 bombers. And then if you put in the Italians up there, you know, they got 4 bombers and 15 fighters. So they got a really strong air force to start the game. Now, the dark sky plan, obviously, it's an air plan on how we're going to use our air units, but it's also a discussion of how we're going to support our land units and how these air units are going to help them out. If you go back to one of my very early videos where I did a whole thing on air power and how I thought we were using air power wrong, now this was when I was brand new to the game. And if you go and rewatch that, I still think some of the principles of what I laid out, which was strat bombers are to strat, fighters are to kill their fighters. I still think that tenet is a good tactic. One of the things, though, I said is don't rely on these air units, you know, to bump up your ground factors. Try not to use them as tactical air. Use them primarily just as fighters, and we're talking about the fighter units here. I'm starting to come around my line of thinking on this the combat system, you know, where Bryce and I did that like 4-part series on what was wrong with combat, and we came up with some different ways to do it. And then in my last video, I said, just ignore all that stuff, because I just don't think we tried one game and it doesn't work. The system is fine. We just have to figure out the system. And so in that Dark Skies video, I'm gonna further explore that and probably break out a video on just like ground combat tactics. And I'm gonna do it during the German video because this obviously is a huge part of this game. Well, any World War II game. And this is also where getting your fundamentals down on how the combat system works, how you should actually be stacking your units, how you should be attacking. I'm gonna set up some scenarios where even in our games, I think it's really overlooked, the whole idea of pinning guys and then breaking pinning to move another territory forward. I think that's a really big concept, and I'm going to explore that because I know in our games, we rarely do that, but I think that's part of what we're missing in combat. And it's, you know, it's something that we're going to explore. And I think once I lay it out, you guys are gonna have to start thinking about it because I definitely think Bryce and I are doing combat wrong. We're too one-dimensional, and it's causing us real problems. So I'm gonna deal with that in the German video because obviously ground combat is a huge part of Germany. Then the other video we're gonna do is we're gonna be talking about the navies, how Germany, in my opinion, shouldn't overlook their navy. Okay, and plans on how to, you know, get into Great Britain. We're going to talk about the Sea Lion operation, obviously, but we're going to talk about also later turns and how I think naval power is naval power I think is kind of overlooked in war rooms sometimes. And I think we shouldn't overlook naval power because at the end of the day, guys, when the war starts, this is the only front in the war between the major powers that's all ground. Every other place on this map where Germany's fighting Britain or America or someone, unless they're fighting them on their home soil, they need a navy to get there. And it's the same with the Allies. Wherever the Allies go, you know, we're talking UK, United States, they have to come by boats. Same thing with Japan and the Pacific Theater and the Americans over there. Everything's done by boats. So we're going to explore actually beefing up that German Navy in trying to stop the United States coming over the Atlantic in the Atlantic to buy us more time on this front, okay? And then we're gonna just try, I'm gonna explore a battle plan I've been coming up with. I don't know what to call it yet. I'm sure I'll give it some cool little name, but it's like a balanced approach where, like, my staff here, everything to the left of the staff, these guys are all aimed over here. Everything to the right of the staff is all aimed over here. So you keep your forces here to threaten the Western Allies, and we're gonna explore, you know, our strength over here and how we reinforce it and try to take Russia out just with these initial stacks plus all our reinforcements, okay? So that's gonna be the plan here with Germany, guys. And we're gonna start going over these battle plans and how to start off the war. You know, I try to take these things only out maybe 3-4 turns, because once we get beyond that, we really don't know what's going on. But try to give you guys a bunch of different ideas, different tactics, different battle plans when you first start the game and you're talking to your fellow allies if you're playing a multiplayer game on, hey, we're gonna do this. You know, if you're playing Germany and you got an Italian ally, you guys got to be on the same page. Same thing with Germany needs to talk to the Japanese player. You guys got to figure it out. Whether that's Japan coming into Russia or Japan's doing something else. You know, if they want to do a different battle plan than coming into Russia, that's fine. But Germany kind of needs to know what Japan's intentions are, and they have to coordinate at least the big concept, the big idea. What are you guys doing compared to what we're doing? And can you help us, or we're gonna be kind of on our own for a little bit? Because one of the things I've always argued with Japan is, Japan, in my opinion, really should be going after the UK. Because they can really help Germany out if they're taking it to UK. But there's merit to the whole Japan on turn 2 comes crashing into Eastern Russia. So both plans have merit, but they do affect how Germany approaches the war, okay? One example of that would be if Japan goes, no, I want to go after, you know, I'm going after Anzac in India hot and heavy. I'm going to try to really take it to the British. Well, then maybe Germany, you know, another battle plan we'll talk about is actually making an effort to bring more Germans down here into the Middle East area. So if Japan goes, we're going to do that plan, we're going after the British, well, then maybe that's a sign for Germany to go ahead and commit some resources to go after Britain also down in the Middle East, because that would also help out Japan a lot if you could do that. So you can see that even though Japan's on the other side of the world, you know, you have to have the same kind of idea and form up, you know, the battle plans around what each power is going to do. So I'm going to leave it off right there, guys. And we're going to, I think the first video we'll do to start it up is just the historical Spring of 42 German battle plan, Operation Blue. This push down here, okay? And then, you know, what do we do? I mean, that's obvious. Well, it's right here. I mean, how elaborate can this plan be? Well, it is elaborate in the sense that you have to, in order to do that, there's a lot of movement here in the back. And what you're doing over here, what we're doing with the air units, what we're doing with the naval, okay? So, you know, it's just the operation is, this is our target zone, down in here. And then once we achieve the target zone, which is the Caucasus, then we can formulate, you know, off of Operation Blue, we can then threaten, you know, these 3 territories and expand out from the Caucasus. Not only that, but, you know, the Caucasus does have 2 oil. And Germany is one of those countries that starts with 6 oil. And to really fuel their war engine, they need oil. Because remember, guys, as we've always talked about oil, it's not just production, it's also how does the turn order bidding for oil, okay? That's a video I've really wanted to do, is just a discussion, because you guys hear me talk about it all the time, this turn order thing up here. And, you know, I call it, we're gonna play the oil bid game, depending on what you're doing on your orders. And I think we need to lay down a foundation for some of the new guys, or even some of the guys who've been playing for a while, this idea up here that there's certain times, in certain circumstances, you want to be up here, but in the vast majority of circumstances, you want to be down in here, okay? And in order to guarantee where you're going, are we going top or are we going bottom, is going to require you to bid oil. And so I'm going to go through the scenarios where you need to bid oil. And what I mean by bid oil is not, well, I'll just throw out 1 oil. No, I need to bid like 6 oil this turn, you know, or 5 oil to make sure I can go first to execute my plan. Or they're executing a plan on me and I see it coming, so I want to go down here at 7 so I can react to it. I can write my orders in such a way that I can actually react when I'm writing my orders to bolster my defense. And we'll go through those scenarios. And so this is very important with Germany, okay? Because Germany has 6 oil and Russia has 6 oil, okay? If we're gonna say this is our primary, we'll say Russia at the beginning of the game is our primary foe, our primary focus. Well, they have just as much oil as you do, okay? They don't have to build a navy. You might want to build a navy. You don't have to, but you might, which costs oil, okay? I know you're going to want to build planes. Russia's going to want to build planes. They're going to want to build tanks. You're going to want to build tanks. But there's going to be a time, it's going to happen on probably turn 2, maybe turn 3. There is going to be a time on this front where on the next turn, you look at it and go, I have to go first. Or if you're the Russian player, I have to go last. You might end up having to bid 4 or 5, maybe all your oil to make sure that happens. Okay? And so that's a big part of Germany, is if you're stuck with only 6 oil with Germany, it really constrains you. It either constrains you on your production or it constrains you on, can you dictate the initiative order on the turn order track, okay? Because if you go, well, I'm just going to use my oil to build, well, then you're never going to really get to decide where you go. Remember, guys, if you bid 0, it's a random draw after everybody who reveals their oil. So every nation who bids oil, they get to choose. But if you bid 0, it's random draw. And I guarantee you on a random draw, you're most likely going to end up in like the 4 spot. 3, 4, or 5. You're going to be caught in that middle zone and you have no idea what's going on. That's the worst spot to be in if you're Germany. Okay? So you have to make a decision with Germany because of your lack of oil, which is why this Caucasus attack is important. Getting down here into the Middle East, fighting for this oil, because the oil not only gives you production, but it gives you the ability to dictate the turn order against the Allies. And that is huge. Okay? So that is it, guys. So as you can see, we probably have 7, 8 videos lined up here. So I'm going to start churning them out. And I think at the end of the German video series, we're going to have a really good foundation of land combat specifically, how the combats, how these stacks interact with each other on the combat board. Plus, it's going to give you some good ideas on how Germany should approach the Eastern Front, but also approach the Western Front. Because remember, guys, this is a game where Germany has to conquer Great Britain. They don't have a choice unless Japan, this is where Japan comes in, does such a good job and goes hog wild, and you guys can stress Great Britain out of the war. You can do it. You can take out Great Britain without ever invading it by putting them on the stress wheel up in the mass desertion. You can actually do it. So, but you can't count on that. You always have to assume once you take care of the Moscow issue, you then focus in on Great Britain. Okay? So, yeah, we're in for it, guys. We might actually end up with hold on to your butts here. We might be looking at maybe 7 hours split up between 8 videos or so on German tactics and different war plans, different strategies, different ways to approach it. And as I always say, guys, I'm not the master of the game. I'm just here to lay down a foundation, let you guys see what I'm thinking. You guys, once you're playing the game, let's say you do one of my plans, that's great. I love it. But I know what you're going to do. You're going to do what every gamer should do. You're going to adjust it on the fly based on the situation, based on your combat board, what is going on your map. But if I can get you guys sound on the foundation, the principles that you need to be following to take out Russia and Great Britain, but also those principles I just laid out on the turn order, when is it a good time to bid heavy, to make sure you have the initiative for the turn to dictate the turn. Lay that foundation down so you have that in the back of your brain when you're sitting there playing with your group. And hopefully that gives you an advantage over the other guys who for some reason don't watch PainState War Room. So that's it, guys. I will be back with the next video, War Plan Blue. Talk to you guys later.